From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is Agday.
Crop tour continues.
Well, eastern Iowa seeing dryness this year, but is it eating into yields? We'll have that story coming up today on Ag Day.
And southern Minnesota has its fair share of problems this year, but how will it impact yield? We'll have the story coming up in the show.
This is tragic. Molly's death is tragic.
Seeking answers in a background check that seemingly failed. In agribusiness, corn price potential.
And I wanted to use 180 so I would know what the downside market risk was, but I think it's going to be below what they just put out.
And finding the balance between moisture and combine efficiency.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. In just a few short hours, Pro Farmer will be rolling out its expectations for the nation's corn and soybean crops. After 4 days, 7 states, and thousands of miles, the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour has wrapped up its 26th year. Traveling farm country, scouts pulling thousands of samples from fields across the Corn Belt, hoping to judge the size of that 2018 crop.
Coverage of the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by Pioneer. You can always count on your local Pioneer team to provide year-round support. Year after year, Pioneer is committed to the success of every acre on your farm. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Those final results come out at 1:30 Central Time, just after the markets close for the week. We'll have full coverage of the final report on agweb.com. Meanwhile, state reports continue to roll in. Wednesday night, it was Illinois, where USDA has pegged a huge crop for 2018 at 207 bushels to the acre for corn and 64 bushels per acre for soybeans. This week, scouts finding 192 bushels to the acre in Illinois, 12 bushels better than last season, but well below that USDA August forecast. Illinois soybeans also much better than a year ago, 1328 in a 3x3 foot square. That's 8% better than a year ago. On Thursday, the eastern leg made its way through eastern and northern Iowa, and as Tyne Morgan found out, once again, the results are mixed.
Clinton, 30% of Iowa is consumed by drought, a mild improvement in just a week. It's that drought parked in the southeastern portion of the state, and its dryness posting yields all over the board this year. From solid ear counts,
these are pretty solid ears,
to healthy plants, some Iowa fields are turning out impressive yields.
That yield calculated 233.2 bushels per acre.
While other fields,
yeah, they're decent. They're not super girthy, deep kernels.
Are showing sub 200 bushel per acre yields.
185.5.
A yield under USDA's current state projection of 202 bushels per acre, the same as last year.
I don't think we're necessarily going to see consistency because of those zones that we have. The south being too dry and too hot during portions of the growing season. Northeast Iowa, very good. Pristine conditions throughout the growing season.
But it's some Iowa fields showing more promise compared to what scouts found in Illinois. And now there's some talk that Iowa could out-yield Illinois this year.
USDA said no in August, so we have to find some really good stuff. And I know from living in Iowa, there are areas that are very, very good. There are areas that have struggled with dryness in the south. And then there are areas that struggle with too much moisture in the northwest.
For local farmer Lance Sheely, it's a good crop.
The ear counts for me this year are probably about 1,000 lower than last year.
But not a record crop this year.
This corn crop is excellent. I don't think it's quite as good as last year, but then time will tell.
He says harvest on high moisture corn for feed could start next week. Only the second time in his career the combine has hit the field in August.
Seems to me like if we mature a crop this early, I don't know if we can have the yield that we've had last 2 years because we had such a cool August.
But for Iowa soybeans,
whoa, that's quite a few pods on these plants here.
It's the opposite story.
These are pretty heavily podded soybeans.
With late season rains saving the soybeans.
The pods are already starting to plump up. Many of these are 3-bean pods. We're not seeing a lot of 2-bean pods.
A story that's playing out in fields across the Corn Belt this year. Grady says the environment is ripe for the soybeans to finish strong.
The factors are there for the factory to build, and you know, good solid soybeans right now.
Well, Clinton, Iowa farmers definitely faced adversity this year when it came to Mother Nature. And while scouts are fairly impressed with Iowa's crop despite that, it's how that variability plays in the final yields that the Scouts are eager to see. Reporting from Iowa, I'm Tyne Morgan for Agday.
Thanks, Tyne. Since the tour spent Thursday in Iowa, we don't yet have a final count for that state, but Scouts reporting mixed results to the south and west. Betsy Gibbon is on the western leg of that tour, and it took Scouts through parts of Minnesota en route to a final destination in Rochester. Betsy?
Minnesota farmers are summing up their growing season in a matter of words.
Not good. Not where I live.
The corn is just terrible.
Both farmers saying wet conditions began during planting and didn't stop.
We had over 18 inches of rain in June, so we got, some potholes, and we had to do some replants a little bit here and there.
A lot of the pre didn't get down, the herbicides didn't get down. Then when we got into side dress time, there was a lot of guys going to side dress, me included. We had about a 3-day window there, and that shut down on us.
There's a lot of misses.
In fields to the west, Scouts are finding similar issues: nitrogen loss, emergence problems, and delayed planting in Jackson and Martin counties.
If I can get my thumb over the top of my index finger, I kind of figure that's the kernel size is average to maybe slightly below average.
Planting problems were prevalent along our route. Some ears are very immature, while others are just starting to dent.
These fields are probably the most immature fields I've seen in South Dakota and Nebraska so far, and Iowa, of course. So I think that's just a testament that they had so many planting problems early on in the season.
USDA put the Minnesota corn yield at 191 bushels per acre in its August report, higher than the department's national estimate of 178.
Fields that are normally going to be producing 220, 230, 240 bushels. Their top yield is 200 bushels. Our low is 93 bushels in these three fields. That's a big range in a very good producing area.
Wilson says beans are a different story.
They range from 800 to 1200. Not great, but good. Moisture to fill those pods out with some pretty good sized beans.
He says that crop is showing more promise.
So they still might be able to harvest some good beans. They're not going to be anywhere near what they were last year.
Aspirations to finish out strong to move both crops along to maturity. Reporting in Minnesota, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Soil moisture in the 7 crop tour states is mostly adequate, but there are some dry spots, especially in southern Iowa. Mike Hoffman has details in today's crop comments.
Good morning, Clinton. The Crop Tour Scouts traveled through Iowa the past couple of days, where the latest drought monitor map shows increasing drought in the southeastern corner of the state. The combined categories of D2 and D3 dried up even more from last week. Nearly 10% is now in severe to extreme drought, but most of the state has abundant moisture. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, it's going to be fairly windy with a storm system moving through the western Great Lakes down into Oklahoma and Texas even this morning. Heading into the afternoon, that wind will continue, as well as picking up from Montana down into Southern California. And we continue to see a fairly windy situation tomorrow from the lower and eastern portions of the Great Lakes all the way down into Oklahoma and Texas. Parts of the northern plains and the west also turning windy in the afternoon. We'll talk more about your forecast coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
There's new information this morning about possible failures in a screening process that allows farmers to conduct background checks on migrant workers. Attention on the problem has been heightened with the death of Iowa College student Molly Tibbetts. Migrant farm worker Christian Rivera is charged with the death of Tibbetts. For the past 4 years, Rivera has worked for Yerby Dairy in Brooklyn, Iowa. Farm manager Dane Lang says Rivera presented an out-of-state government-issued photo identification and a matching Social Security card when he was hired back in 2014.
We ran that information through the verification service and the information came back verified. That means that the exact name, birth date, and exact Social Security number were all cross-referenced. What we learned in the last 24 hours is that our employee was not who he said he was.
Those comments made Wednesday afternoon. Lang says the farm did not use the E-Verify system as previously stated. He says a staffer mistakenly thought they were the same systems. Both E-Verify and the Social Security Administration's program immigration experts say can be beaten with a state ID and a Social Security number belonging to someone else. A spokesman for U.S. Immigration and Citizenship Services saying Wednesday that a search of the agency's records found nothing indicated that Christian Rivera has any lawful immigration status. When we come back, the market potential for corn given the expected size of the crop. And later on Farm Journal College TV, maximizing combine efficiency and harvest.
Ag Day, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market.
Corn markets have been feeling the weight of production and trade talks, but is there any potential for prices to go higher? Tyne Morgan asks a question from the road in today's analysis.
Here now with Bill Biederman of Allendale. Bill, you look at USDA's current estimate of this corn crop. They think we have a record corn crop on our hands, but at this point in time, a lot of people are still debating that national corn yield.
Yeah, Tyne, a month ago I was right at 180, and I wanted to use 180 so I would know what the downside market risk was, but I think it's going to be below what they just put out. I mean, I'm afraid of the test weights. I'm just hearing that in so many states.
Right, because this last estimate that they did was based on ear counts, not test weights, right?
Yeah, they used a standard test weight. And, there's going to be some good corn throughout the central part of the Midwest, but when you go to the south or the north, there's a whole band there that's rough.
So, Bill, what if we did put in the biggest yield estimate now? What if we did put that in the August report? Does that set the stage for much higher corn prices to come? Do you think we may be priced in the worst of it?
I think higher. I don't know about the much higher unless certain things happen.
Like what?
But, like we get a simple rotation next year, we don't get a pile of acres. Or, we get trade deals with Mexico and China. And China, especially in the China one, if they do the ethanol deal. Because the ethanol deal, we will participate in that in a big way.
So what else has to happen short term? I mean, when you look at prices, what needs to happen to at least get really above that 420 mark when it comes to
Well, farmers got to get this crop put away. That's the bottom line. Because once they put it away, they're not going to get it. They're not going to bid it out of the bin until they get to that 420 level. There's a gap on the chart too at 410. So I think we're gonna end up there. I feel very confident of that.
You do. So what about producers right now that are feeling the heat, getting ready to harvest?
Yeah, it's tough for those that still have some inventory to move out. Personally, if I was them, I'd be replacing it on the board. I think it's just cheap. It just is. It's just cheap commodity. And then I just hang on. I think there's good prospects going into the winter.
Hang on. Bill Biederman, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We need to take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have a check of weather.
To talk with Bill Biederman one-on-one, call Allendale Incorporated at 815-404-1917 or head online to allendale-inc.com.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at the drought monitor, Mike, and you can see there are spots where it's still pretty serious.
I know. When you look at it from Missouri down into Texas, it's speckled. It really just depends on whether thunderstorms happen to have hit your area over the past month or so. But it has to be frustrating if you're sitting there in the extreme or exceptional drought area and one or two counties over, it's not at all like that just because they happen to have some rain. We do notice northern Michigan getting a little drier. We're starting to see a little bit more in the Dakotas. Oregon continues to dry off, Southern California as well. But let's go back a month, and you can see 4 weeks ago we were already seeing these same general areas, but like I said, we've picked up a little bit of extra drought northern Great Lakes into the northern plains over the past 4 weeks. You can see as we go through time, we started to get a little drier in parts of Texas, then it improved a little bit over the past couple of weeks, but still there are some areas in extreme exceptional drought in that area. But the big bullseye continues to be the Four Corner region, as you can see there. Here's the weather map as we start the day today. We have an area of low pressure in southwestern Canada, and you can see a warm front to the east. An area of low pressure along that will be the focus for showers and storms, and it'll have a little bit of rotation with it and cause some activity even into the warm sector, as you'll see, especially during the afternoon hours. There's later today areas of showers and thunderstorms from northern portions of the Mississippi Valley into the western eastern Tennessee Valley. Spotty stuff in the southwest. Heading into tomorrow morning, you can see widespread showers and storms into Wisconsin and also Michigan, Ohio Valley. That will continue to push east. This is pretty warm, humid air here, so you've seen a little bit less heat and humidity recently, but that's going to be changing. Precipitation estimates, northern plains and the Missouri Valley, as you can see, adding in the next 36 hours, that whole system will continue to come east. We'll have some areas in Florida and the southwest as well. Heat from Kansas southward, and that pleasant air is going to start to go away, but it's still very comfortable. Great Lakes in the northeast, northern plains on through tonight, and you can see that heat will start to build into the central plains as we head through tomorrow afternoon. There's the jet stream. You can see the system kind of going away there. The ridge tries to come into the Great Lakes in the northeast as we head into early next week. And then we kind of go zonal, as you can see, as we head toward the end of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. And Elko, Nevada, first of all, lots of sunshine and hot, high of 89 degrees. Kansas City, Missouri, hot and humid, thunderstorm in spots, high of 94. And Portland, Maine, comfortable with lots of sunshine, the afternoon high around 78 degrees.
We're talking harvest and grain moisture for maximizing field work next on Farm Journal College TV. And later, farmers and ranchers go mainstream as commercial characters. My thoughts in Farm Sense.
Advice, information, ideas, and more. If it's ag tech, it's in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased, one-stop source for everything ag tech.
In just a few weeks, combines will be rolling across the country, and as we learn in today's Corn College TV segment, there's no time like the present to start making preparations.
When we get to harvest, I want to make sure you're prepared, you're ready. But there's a lot of things during harvest that we really should be paying attention to.
Including all the moving parts that are going on around us, but really the timing of when we start harvest, a lot of that's driven by moisture, right?
Yeah, if you look back at university studies over time, they would say that the optimum time for harvest as far as percent moisture of the corn is 25%.
Okay.
So 25% corn would be ideal. Now obviously you can't harvest all your corn at that moisture, but according to the studies, that is what's optimum for yields. As the corn gets drier, they've actually seen the yields come down.
Okay. Well, what about moisture while we're harvesting? Because a lot of times we'll run through the night, we can start hitting heavy dews. Does that make a difference or not? Should we stop at some point?
Sometimes we have to, because if the fodder gets really wet, if you get a heavy enough dew that's almost like getting a mist of a rain or a light rain, we can see where our actual losses really start to go up. So that is important to pay attention to. Some operations are very large and really have to harvest through the night, but they should be paying attention to losses. If your losses are going up, you probably need to stop or make some good adjustments on the combine.
Okay, and speaking of the combine, what kind of adjustments do we need to be making on that as far as, really calibrating everything and making sure it's working the way it needs to be?
Well, we want to definitely keep in mind paying attention to header loss and loss out the back of the combine.
Okay.
And Brad will talk about that and making those actual adjustments there to reduce as much of that loss as we can by making the proper adjustments on the combine.
All right, when we come back, the characterization of American agriculture.
In the Country, sponsored by the all-new Kubota Sidekick, a utility vehicle that lets you climb more, cover more, tow more, and enjoy more. Visit KubotaUSA.com.
With less than 2% of the American population working in agriculture, I've noticed in recent years the concept of being a farmer or rancher seems to have a certain amount of nostalgia with it. It's a strange and foreign concept for the mainstream's concrete and suburban jungle, which may be why ag is finding its way into television commercials on a semi-regular basis. From this recent portrayal of cowboys discussing insurance around the concept of more, playing off the idea of big buckles as it grows to include the ridiculous, which is also what makes it funny, to this one that shoots for heartfelt over funny, a father and son grappling with the idea of legacy, disappointment, and pride. It's an idea that rings true for many farm families, but how it applies to folks in town, I guess, has me a little puzzled. Of course, the dad is portrayed as terse, gruff, and unwavering until the final moments of redemption. I think it should serve as a reminder that while our profession is sacred to us, it's a colorful memory and professional sidebar in today's urban society. What does a farmer or rancher look and act like? If these two examples are any indication, don't expect the other 98% to ask your opinion. It's also why, when you get the chance, impressions beyond the farm gate matter more than ever. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in and spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at Agday, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.